Hello, hello, and welcome back to the 5 Foot Strong podcast. I am your host, Jessica Gerlock, and we are here today. It is May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I want to start off by asking everybody how they are doing today. I hope everybody is sees the positive in something today. Feel that inner strength, be confident. You know, every day is a new day to make a healthier, happier change in your life. It's all in your hands. So for May, I want to start off by saying, you know, take care of your mental health. Mental health is just as important as physical health is. And the 5 Foot Strong podcast, I want to destigmatize the whole idea about talking about your mental health. Not every day is going to be great and jolly, but if you change your mindset to see the positives in things instead of the negatives, you go a long way. And when you practice these skills over and over, it becomes a lifestyle. And it's changed. My mental health is something that I've always wanted to talk about. I always wanted people to know that they're not alone. I dealt with my worst days when I was in high school. And, I've talked about it in my book, I've talked about it on my podcast before, but it wasn't till I flipped that mindset switch and started to prioritize my mental health, started to prioritize my physical health, that, I started to see a change in my life. I've written a book, I have started a podcast, I have a fitness business. It's all because I put that work in myself. And it's if you're a woman, a man, whatever you are, I want you to all know that your mental health is really important to take control of. We have the ability to control our thoughts, and if we work on changing the negatives to the positives, you'll see a lot of change in your life and positive change in your life. So I think it's really important. We all have the ability inside of us to do make control of our lives. And I realized, when I was in high school, I think I was like 16, 17, and it was a time that I'm grateful for because of who I am today. But it was tough. And I look back and I feel for high school students that are trying to figure out who they are, and just know it gets better. And you can prioritize your mental health in many different ways. I use fitness, some people use therapy, whatever you need to take control of your thoughts and your reactions, because you're going to be thrown a lot of curveballs in life, and it's you only have control of your reaction. So if you have anger issues, if you're have social anxiety, if you have depression, we all will have most people will deal with a mental illness in their lifetime. And it shouldn't be something that defines you. It should be something that strengthens you. I know that those days made me stronger. And, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger 100%. Those days I look back, I think maybe like 16, 17 years ago, and I'm so proud of myself, but I've done the work. And I just want to, you talk, I want to share my story to help others dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, dealing with all sorts of mental illness, to know that if you stay strong, it does get better. And tomorrow will be better. You just have to have that positive attitude on life. So, for Mental Health Awareness Month for May, let's start off by the 5 Foot Strong podcast would like to everyone to prioritize their mental health. It is one of the most important things you can do for your health, for your future, and it really changes your perspective on life. So I want to kind of pivot from there. And it's funny, a couple of weeks ago, I got an early morning FaceTime from my parents. And I'm in my 30s now. And I got this early morning FaceTime, and they saw in the background that my bed was made. And both of their reactions were kind of funny. They were kind of shocked. And I was like, well, why are you shocked? Because when I was living in their house growing up, we had to make our beds. So it was kind of like, I was kind of surprised that they were shocked that I took the habit that I learned growing up and I've continued it. Such a simple habit to start my day now I'm in my 30s and every day I start my day with making my bed. It makes me feel ready for the day. It's like cleaning up. It makes me feel accomplished doing that simple task of making my bed. So, right after that FaceTime call, my dad sends me this YouTube video. And it was in this speech, this Naval Admiral William McRaven delivered the commencement speech in 2014 at the University of Texas at Austin. And it was about how one person can change the world, but you have to start by making your bed. And he talks about when he did, the basic Navy SEAL training, it was 6 months, and it really tested your mental and physical, abilities. But every day, these warriors, these Navy SEALs, their instructors, which were normally Vietnam veterans, would come into their barracks or their room and inspect all the soldiers' beds to make sure that they were all perfectly made. Because that's how, even, you might be fighting a war, but, if he basically talks about if you can't complete those small, simple things perfectly, you're never going to complete the big things perfectly. You're just not. You have to start with the simple things and complete them, making them perfect so that you know how to make the bigger things and accomplish bigger tasks in that sense. So they would all come in, these Vietnam veterans would come in and inspect the beds and make sure the corners were folded in and the pillows were fluffed and it was all perfect before they could start their day. And his this Navy's this admiral says basically, he says, if you want to change the world, you got to start by making your bed. And so I kind of laughed. I was like, my dad's like was a surgeon because he wanted me and my brother to make our beds every day. That was kind of an expectation. So, when I went into college, when I went out, it was just a habit that I've always had. It's like any habit that you build over time. It's like even fitness, it's eating well. It all starts by one small thing you have to do. It's that one small task, and you have to perfect that one small task. So, in this speech, basically, you got to start by making your bed and how one person can change the world. But it will give you, just by though, like that small starting your day by making your bed, will give you that little sense of pride. It will encourage you to do another task and another and keep going throughout the day. By the end of the day, that one task completed ends up being many tasks completed. And making your bed will also reinforce that the little things in life matter. As I said before, he says, if you can't do the little things right, you will never do the big things right. And I think that's really important to remember. So he goes into these lessons that he learned from basic SEAL training, which I thought was really interesting. The lessons that he learned from, the physical and mental challenges that he was thrown his way during a Navy SEAL. Like I could never complete it. I don't have, I'm not there yet. Maybe one day, but not there yet. But you have to have real mental strength. You have to have real determination. You have to have real grit. You got to believe in something. And that is strength in the end of the day. That is whole part of the idea of the word being strong. So one of so going back to like making your bed again, whatever. That's the first thing he learned is like start your day with a completed task. Make your bed. Okay. Another one he threw out was don't do it alone. You can't change the world alone. He talked about being in a boat with, six other soldiers or whatever, and he talked about you don't know these people, but you can't paddle a boat by yourself. You need all six people to paddle the boat. So you got to rely on other people to make that change. Whether it be family, whether it be friends, whether it be teachers, whether it be community, librarians, whatever it may be, doctors, mental health specialists, all there are so many people willing to help you become the best version of yourself. Don't think you have to do it alone. And I think that was really another thing. So then he talks about this, this is a part of his speech. This speech is, by the way, 20 minutes on YouTube, and I will put the link below. If you are watching on YouTube, I'll put the link below. I've listened to it a couple times, and it's inspired me in many ways, and I've thought about it a lot. So he talks about this Munchkin boat crew. And so, you're a Navy SEAL, you're on the water, whatever, and you're in like you're in like teams of six or something. And there was always this one boat that everyone on the boat, I think there were six of them, they were always under 5'5", and they were from everywhere, anywhere. And they got teased, they got laughed at for their size of their flippers because of course they had smaller feet. They're not 6 feet big guys, they're 5'5", or smaller. And but the greatest thing, what I loved about this, is they always had the last laugh. They were always faster, they were always stronger, they always completed the tasks better. And so it really teaches you to measure someone by the size of their heart, and not the size of, as he says, not the size of their flippers. You might be teased by, I've written actually a Huffington Post article, is not by being judged, not judging a book by its cover. And I truly believe that. People see me and I'm 5 feet tall, but they don't realize how strong I am, what my abilities are. Right by that first look, they doubt me in ways. I'm a woman, I'm short, but guess what? I'm always going to have the last laugh because that's the inner strength that I've built up. That's the determination that I've built up. I have confidence in myself. I believe in myself. And if I want to get a task done, I know how to do it. And that's exactly what this Munchkin Bow crew, they're not going to let these other guys who are laughing at them and teasing them and judging them by what they look like. They have that determination. They have that grit. So one of the lessons he talks about is grit and determination always trump talent. You got to believe in yourself. You can rely on other people, but you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe that you have the ability to complete anything that is thrown your way. So this Munchkin boat crew talks about like, how this Navy SEAL training was a great equalizer. You could be tall, you could be heavy, you could be short. If you believed in yourself and you had the determination, that's what they were looking for. That's what they wanted. They wanted someone who really was determined and not just using their talent or their size. So he goes on to talk about how this, you would go in all your clothes and go into the water. It was a challenge he had to do, and then roll around in sand. So you're wet in clothes, rolling around in sand, and then you have to find the perfect outfit. Well, you know, people like perfect you had to get all the sand off. Well, that's impossible. It's just not going to happen. So it really teaches you that life is not fair. Get over it, move on, deal with what you got to deal with. It was really a tester for you just got to sometimes it goes into the next one is you got to kind of sometimes accept failure. Don't fear failure. Embrace it. You will fail many times in life, and I think that's important too. Life is a long time, and failure only teaches you to get stronger, and I've definitely experienced failure, but I learn from it. And if as long as you learn from it and grow and become a better person because of it, that it was just a lesson. It's not a failure. Don't, it's that kind of idea of when you fall off the horse, you got to get back on. It's you got to pivot, you got to do whatever you got to do to finish the task at hand and realize that sometimes you're going to succeed and sometimes you're going to fail. But those times that you fail, you embrace it, you learn from it, and you move on. And I think that's a really important one too. I think these are really life lessons. This Admiral McRaven talks about all these lessons he learned by being challenged. He was challenged. During this Navy SEAL, you're challenged to basically fail. Like you are pushed to every extreme, and if you don't have that inner belief in yourself and that realize that life isn't fair and failure will happen, but you accept it and you're like, okay, bring on whatever gets thrown my way. I think that's a really important lesson. That is inner strength. That is why I wanted to talk about this speech on this podcast, because all these lessons this admiral was talking about, it seemed so simple yet so complicated at the same time. He talks about if you want to change the world, you got to start by making your bed. It's such a simple thing because if you could do the simple things, you could do the bigger things. You just got to kind of, you know, we don't know what tomorrow brings. So we kind of got to throw ourselves in, and if you live in fear, you'll never succeed. Fear and doubt are probably the two things that kill people's dreams from coming true. They doubt themselves, they fear that they won't succeed, and those things will challenge you every single day. And if you realize that you're not scared of failing or or giving up, and if you aren't fearful of what may happen next, life will be much better for you. If you live in fear, it will stop you from doing a lot of things that you should be pursuing. So another one of his lessons he talks about is taking calculated risks. And I agree with that because it goes back to doubting. It goes back to letting fear stop you. If you let fear stop you from achieving what you're meant to achieve, you'll never take those risks. You'll think too much of the what ifs. And that's one thing that drives me nuts is that what if mindset. Life is too short to think what if. We have to take those calculated risks. We don't have to be dumb. You don't have to be jumping into fire or, things that are like clearly not smart. But if you know that if there's a will, there's a way. And these challenges, if you know that there is an end and you'll do whatever it takes inside of you and build up all that strength inside of you, you will succeed at the end of the day. He shares this story about, being a Navy SEAL, you're under like dark waters a lot and whatever. And there's a lot of, species underwater. And so if you ever come across a shark, you're supposed to not run away or swim away, sorry, but you're supposed to build up all that inner strength and courage and punch the shark right in the nose so that they turn away. That takes a lot of inner strength to do. And most people, I would say 99%, 97% of people will become fearful and swim away if a shark ever approached them. But the whole idea is if you can stand up and knock a shark in the nose, if you don't back down from those sharks, you got to stand up to the bullies because there's a lot of sharks in the water, there's a lot of bullies. But if you back down, they'll always take over. They'll always win. You can't back down. It's an interesting thing to take from, how you would deal with a shark being thrown your way. But it's true. If you have that build up that inner strength to stand up to the shark or the bully, that's what they want. They want that inner strength. What we are achieving is becoming a stronger version of the version of this of what we were yesterday. So if you can punch a shark in the nose, you can stand up to bullies, and that's what you're supposed to do. And the one of the last lessons he talks about is life is going to get hard, but and I talked about this before, it's about our reaction to how all the curveballs thrown our way. And we have to rise up to the occasion when life gets tough. We can't back down. We have to rise up and realize that we are stronger than we doubt ourselves a lot more than we should. You got to believe in yourself that you can make a positive change. And it goes back. If you want to change the world, you should start by, making your bed, doing those simple things perfectly so that you can do those bigger things perfectly later on in life as well. It's hard to imagine that whole idea of one person can change the world. But then he made a good point of there have been people who have made a difference in this world. And they've all had one thing in common. They've all had the power of hope, the power of believing that there can be a change in this world. You think he talks about Mandela, he talks about Martin Luther King Jr., he talks about even Malala. These people are one person, but they had a goal to change the world and and they all had the belief of hope, the belief of a positive mindset. Goes back to that inner strength. What I've talked about throughout this whole podcast is not lifting weights, but all these lessons that this admiral has taught you is you can work on your strength without even lifting a weight. Anybody can be a stronger, better person by believing in themselves, working on their mental health, working on switching their mindsets from a negative to a positive. That will all make you a stronger person. If you have hope that you can make a change for the better and impact the world and inspire, motivate others to do better as well, then you are a strong person by definition. You don't have to have the biggest muscles. You know, I don't think Malala has the biggest muscles, but she has something that a lot of people don't have. And she has that power of hope, the power that you can make a change in this world if you believe in yourself first. And so I want to end the podcast by sharing the tip of the day. And it goes back to the very beginning of this podcast is start your day by making your bed. And if you can do that, you can do a lot of tasks throughout the day. It's a really good way to realize that you have the ability to do whatever you want to do. You just got to do it. And I think that's really important. So I will keep making my bed. Thanks, mom and dad. Thanks for that habit growing up. And I really think that we can learn a lot from this speech. Again, I'm going to link it down below, but this speech taught me, and I've listened to it a couple times, that we all have the ability inside of us, no matter who you are. But you got to flip that mindset. You got to believe in yourselves. You got to do the work to yourself to because nobody else is going to do it for you. Yes, you can't change the world alone, but you have to start by changing yourself. Not changing yourself, but improving yourself. That's all you can do each day. You don't need money or anything crazy to do it. You do journaling, meditation, yoga, whatever you got to do to center your thoughts, bring out the positive, think of the world in the idea of the cup is half full, and realize that life does get hard, but it also gets better. And you just got to deal with all the curveballs thrown your way, and that's what will make you stronger at the end of the day. You go to the gym to work on your physical health. Yes, it works on your mental health as well. But you really got to do the work every single day for your mental health. So happy Mental Health Awareness Day. If you are struggling, please talk to someone. Go get help. There's help out there for you. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So I hope you learned a lot of lessons from this episode, this podcast, and this speech, which was done in 2014 by Admiral McRaven. And I will link that below. And also, I want you to all focus on your mental health and, smile. Have a great day. Remember, whether you're 5 feet tall like myself or 7 feet tall, we are all strong in our own unique and beautiful ways. Have a great day.